Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, as you probably already know, throughout January, I am hoping to answer as many of your questions in videos like this as I possibly can. For today's video, it is still one of your questions, but it is a question I've taken from the live chat from one of our streams, and it's a very popular one that gets asked a lot. And that is, when do I think Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel will retire from Formula One? Here goes. I'm going to do this alphabetically, so we will start with Alonso. And as we say a lot on live streams, I think a lot of it depends on what Renault bring for McLaren in 2018. If they bring a good engine and Alonso is competing regularly for podiums and can challenge for some wins, I do believe that will reignite the fire in his belly and we'll probably see him want to stay another year or two after 2018. I don't expect him to be racing in Formula One beyond 2020. But in many ways, it's hard to see how he could walk away from Formula One if now he's starting to compete for wins and podiums. I've always said that I feel that Fernando Alonso has kind of lost the last 3 years of his career, and he's going to really want to make that up. But to contradict myself a little bit on what I was saying just a moment ago, Alonso has always struck me as the kind of driver that would retire when he was on top. So if he's picking up odd wins next season, maybe Monaco, for example, and picks up regular podiums, will he want to risk another season of maybe Renault going backwards? We don't know what Renault are going to do in 2018, 19, 20, so who knows? He's not going to know either. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him retire at the end of 2018 at all. But at the same time, I also wouldn't be overly surprised if he stayed until 2020. It's all down to Renault and all down to what they can do with the engine and what McLaren can do with the chassis as to whether he's still got that fire to keep going. But as I've said a couple of times, I fully expect Fernando Alonso will retire within the next 2 to 3 seasons. Next up, and probably the toughest of the three to call, is Lewis Hamilton. There are some, including our very own Jonty, who get the impression he may retire at the end of this coming season. I do not believe he will. I think he's another driver who will not go any further than 2020, but like I say, he's really difficult to read and it's tough to call. And I may be alone on this, but I kind of get the impression he's the opposite to Alonso. I think he would rather go out having not won a world championship than on top when he's won one. You look at some of the things he said after Nico Rosberg decided to retire. I've always been of the impression that if Lewis Hamilton is world champion, he will always want to come back and have a shot at defending that. So, although I don't think he will retire at the end of 2018, if, say, Sebastian Vettel does win the world championship, then Lewis Hamilton could decide to retire. His contract, of course, at Mercedes has been up at the end of this year anyway. But I do not see him retiring before 2020. And the reason I say 2020 is because I cannot believe he's going to want to stick around for the changes in 2021. It's more changes to the sport, it's more upheaval, and it's another new era in Formula One. So I just don't think he will stay around post-2020. The other thing with Lewis Hamilton is he's got things he wants to pursue after Formula One away from motorsport. He's very much looking to expand what I guess you could call brand Hamilton. And that's fine. It's great that he's got aspirations beyond Formula One and for the end of his career, but he's not going to want to wait too many more years before he starts doing that. He's also been very open over recent weeks and over recent months about how retirement is starting to come to the forefront of his mind, both for professional and personal circumstances. So that's kind of why I feel 2020 will be the absolute latest that Lewis Hamilton will stay in the sport. Sebastian Vettel then, and he is completely the other end of the scale. I don't see him leaving Formula One for quite a while yet. He's a little bit younger than the other two, so he's always going to stick around a little bit longer. And I always get the feeling that he's pretty desperate to emulate Michael Schumacher. Will he win 7 world championships? I highly doubt it, but he could certainly win a world championship or 2 at Ferrari if that all comes together. I also wouldn't be surprised if he fancies a crack in that Mercedes as well. The whole German driver, German team thing. I think he'd love that. So he's potentially still got quite a lot that he might want to achieve in Formula One, and I do not see him retiring before 2024. For some reason, that's a date I've always had in my head for Sebastian Vettel's retirement. At that point, he's 36, 37 years old, heading towards the age that Michael Schumacher was when he announced his first retirement, and it also gives him plenty of time to win a world championship with Ferrari and maybe then go on to Mercedes and win a world championship there as well. But of course, all that is dependent on just what 2021 throws up. There's no guarantee that Mercedes are still going to be a dominant force in F1. And Sebastian Vettel just strikes me as the kind of driver that will want to stay around in Formula One as long as he possibly can. So as I say, I just don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. And that's fine. That's great for Formula One. We want to keep these world champions on the grid as long as we can. But ultimately, every driver has to retire eventually. Something I will say is, when I was looking into doing this video and kind of going over it in my head a little bit, it made me realise just how different these three drivers are. And I'm talking in terms not just of personality and their racecraft. I mean, they're three fantastic drivers, and of course they're completely different in terms of personality, but just looking at their different aspirations for post-Formula One or the next few years within the sport. You've got, say, Alonso, who wants to stay in Formula One so long as he's competitive. You've got Lewis Hamilton, who's got aspirations beyond that, so he's looking at brand Hamilton, as I say. And then you've got Sebastian Vettel, who just wants to stick around as long as he can. Just a random yet very obvious thought there to stick at the end of the video. They are, of course, just my opinions, but what do you think? When do you think Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel will retire from Formula One? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you have a question that you'd like me to answer in a video similar to this, make sure you pop that in the comments section as well. I will be back with more content soon, but in the meantime, don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Discord. Links to all three are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.